So hello, my name is Koll. I'm working for Yamaha Music Europe in the field of broadcast and system integration as a sales engineer. So what we want to do now is have a look at our new flagship digital mixing console. Well, digital, yes, but we try to make it kind of hybrid. What we wanted to achieve with this one, first of all, it should be as neutral as possible, which is good. If we talk about digital mixing consoles, they tend to be neutral. But what we did with this one is we integrated a lot of technologies coming from Rupert Neve electronics. So we can make and shape the sound and color it in the way Rupert Neve did with his analog electronics. So there's a kind of hybrid console which gives us as neutral sound as possible or as analog sound as possible using plugins and emulations and more of this in detail later. First of all, let's have a look what the system is doing. This system always processes 144 input channels, 72 output channels, mix buses, 36 matrix channels, 2 independent stereo buses, and a lot of several stuff like Q, monitor buses, and whatever you want. There's a lot of things in it. But first of all, let's have a system overview. What does the system consist of? We'll start with the RPIO 622, which is an input rack, which can be widely configured for any type of signals going in. On top of this, you will see an external TV screen. This TV screen can be connected directly to the console surface. The surface itself is nothing else like a big remote control, giving you touchscreen access, manual knob access to the signals you want to process. And of course, there are some local I/Os in it. You need it for external things at front of house or control room position. Yes, you can have that connected to this one, but the whole thing is connected to the heart of the mixing control, which is the DSP R10, which is below down here, along with a smaller input rack, which is called RPIO 222. And not to forget, of course, there is an online and offline editor for the system. You can configure and control the system using a standard Windows computer. Connected is all of this through our patent-pending digital audio network system, which is called TwinLane. TwinLane is a high-speed audio network based on fiber optic cables, and it can carry many signals on long distance. TwinLane itself is working at 96 kilohertz sample rate along with 32-bit signal depth. So this gives highest sound quality if we transfer signals from in to out somewhere. TwinLane is designed to have a minimum latency concept of below 2 milliseconds wherever you put it in the system. In and out will be below 2 milliseconds. And there's a lot of cool features around this TwinLane network. But before we go into detail, we will now start having a closer look at the hardware. Let's start with the new RPIO 622. 622 means it's a card frame system. So within the system, you can add 6 pancake cards, which can handle up to 16 channels as input or as output, or both in case of the ICBU input card you can see here. This is 16 inputs and outputs ICBU, 16 outputs analog and 16 inputs analog. This is the 3 types of pancake cards we are offering for the system. And as you heard before, we do some kind of analog processing within the system already, and this really happens in the input section already. This input pancake card does all the necessary processing to make the system sound as analog as possible in the style of Rupert Neve made his console sound beautiful analog. So the Neve processing is inside the input cards. It's not in the DSP, it's inside here. It's a very important thing. Here at the left side of the I/O rack, you will find 2 of the old type MY16 card slots. So we can add on any of the existing cards out of the Yamaha program to input or output signals in any desired format. And at the back, you will find 2 of the new HC, high channel count slots. One of them is the TwinLane connection we are using for interconnecting the system. And the other one is an in and output card in format of Dante. This new HC card enables the user to input or output up to 144 Dante channels from the Dante network into the TwinLane network and vice versa. So this is a very, very powerful thing. At each part of the system, you will be able to insert Dante channels into TwinLane or output channels from TwinLane into Dante network. So each of them. So now let's have a look at the rack on the other side, which consists of the DSP rack. So now let's have a look at the heart of the mixing console. This is DSP R10. This is the processor itself. After all the signals are coming in from the TwinLane network, the sound will be processed within this DSP. It's very, very powerful. It can process up to 384 plugins along with 144 input channels, 72 mix buses, 36 matrix buses, 2 independent stereo buses, 2 independent Q buses, and a lot of monitoring stuff, talkback stuff, and all this is processed in there. It's very, very powerful. At the front, you will be able to process signals coming from 2 MY cards again, so the option to have MY cards in any format you like, ADAT or TDIF, whatever you want, you can plug in directly here. If we now go to the back, you can see here in the graphics, there's a total of 4 of the new HC slots, which is a high channel count slots. Each of them is able to input and output 256 channels at the same time. So the DSP R10, this one is able to provide up to 1056 input channels and output channels at the same time to the systems which are linked to this DSP. Very, very, very powerful. Along with DSP R10, you will see here now our brand new RPIO 222. This is just a smaller version of the 622 I have already shown to you. 222 means there's space for 2 input pancake cards, for 2 MY cards, and for 2 high channel count cards at the back. First of all, let's have a look how the surface itself is organized. On the 2 big 15-inch touchscreens, you can see either single channel view or central logic view. Both of them you already know from other Yamaha consoles, so it's very common to have a look at this. Both screens can show both modes, of course, as well as each bass, which are named bay left, bay center, bay right, can give us access to any of the 144 input channel, any of the 72 mix buses, any of the 24 DCAs, or any of the 2x6 custom layers, which means a number of 12 custom layers is programmable for bay left, another 12 for bay center, and another 12 for bay right. So the user can modify the surface to its own needs as much as possible to give you freedom to run any show in any configuration you like. But this is not all. There's a way how we can organize the streams. So if, for example, we choose to have setup and go to preferences, there are several link buttons. If we unlink, for example, the left bay from the rest of the console, this means here engineer A can work with certain channels, as well as with the rest of the console, another engineer can work with some channels, and both of them can have independent Q buses. So it's a two-man working style surface, if you like this. But you can go on further. You can unlink this bay from this one and this one. So this is 3 people now doing something, or 2 engineers, while this engineer is changing dynamically content to have some channels nailed down here without ever changing it. Whatever you want, and you can even unlink the external screen. So somebody else can work over here using keyboard and mouse, which is also possible. As you can see, the surface can be widely configured to the needs of the engineers, which is new. So we don't give a fixed surface, we make it configurable. Within the center of this one, you can see the user-defined knobs and the user-defined keys area. There is a total of 4 knobs and 12 keys. The keys number 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12. They are underneath the surface. You won't do something unintentionally with it. It's for the dangerous things to do, so you put them on this one. The section is organized in 4 banks, so in a total we will have 16 user-definable knobs and 48 user-definable keys, which is very, very convenient to work with. Here we will find the bay right, which is underneath the big selected channel section. The selected channel gives us access, direct manual access to the channel's functions, which feels like working with an analog console. We try to make this as big as possible, so there is very quick manual access. So the engineer will decide, I'm a touchscreen guy, so probably he will work with this one, or if you come from an analog console, you will be very happy to work with this huge selected channel module. So where we can direct have access to mix buses, to compressors, to EQs, to whatever we want. It's very easy to work with. Now let's have a look at the signal flow from input to output. After the signal is processed through the twin lane and coming into the DSP, there's a chance to color the signal. This is where we use the Silk module. Silk is a technology invented by Rupert Neve, adding analog warms. So he sold this in his external effects, and he's got it in some of his consoles. So it's a very unique feature to have this, and you can switch this on and off per channel to make this channel sound as neutral as possible or as analog as possible. Very cute to have this. When we switch this on, we also activate the emulation of an input transformer, as well as the processing, which is called red or blue, giving you analog warms in the high frequencies or in the lower frequencies. So pressing signal flow gives you the run-through of the channel, and the channel processors itself, they are organized in tabs over here. First of all, as I said, it's gain Silk. The next tab is EQ. There we have a brand new feature. Now, each EQ in every channel has got the chance to be processed with different algorithms. They are called smooth, aggressive, legacy, which is, of course, the standard Yamaha EQ you know from all our other consoles, as well as a precise one. After choosing a certain algorithm, you will feel that the EQ behaves completely different. So when you are used to work with another manufacturer's brand console, you probably may choose to have the aggressive one as your favorite EQ per channel. So then you feel more home on a Yamaha console. This setting of 4 EQs per channel is combined with the ability to have the option of an AB bank switch. Here we can now compare how algorithm A with a certain setting may sound compared to another setting of an EQ with another algorithm. This means we don't have to open up a plugin. 2 EQs with different algorithms are initially available per channel, and you can compare the settings directly. So this gives you a lot of freedom while mixing very complicated signals or very, very often changing signals. So there's 2 EQ presets per channel. The same concept we will have at the dynamics. 2 blocks of dynamics like you used to know from PM consoles or CL or QL consoles, but now these one can process any algorithm, which can be compressor, de-esser, expander, ducker, whatever. And emulation type console, as this one is, there is now the chance to have a compressor 260 on every of the input channels. This means we don't have to open up a plug-in to get the sound of this beautiful analog compressor. It's initially in all the channels. So hundreds of those are already available when switching this console on without on without using any plugin already. Of course, there is plugin, and this can be configured using the insert point overview screen. As you can see, there is two plugin chains, so-called plugin chains, which can consist of up to 4 plugins. Here we do have a plugin chain A, which processes a Rupert Neve EQ out of the 80s. Somehow he built this in consoles out of the 80s, and a compressor coming from the 80s, and probably you want to make this sound in this chain a little bit more like the 70s, then you can add on another compressor. As you can see, any type of insert you want, you can assign to this plugin chain. And of course, here's one left where we didn't mount anything yet, so we press mount, and we have the freedom to choose from delay effects, EQ dynamics, graphic EQs, parametric EQs, or even outboard can be inserted in the chains. But probably we may have we may use an EQ effect and give us another EQ from Rupert Neve from the 70s, and now there is this beautiful sounding Rupert Neve EQ inserted within this channel. As I said, it's 2 plugin chains consisting of 4 plugins already, so a lot of plugins can be processed. We use a structure which is calculating instances. Up to 384 instances can be processed simultaneously. Some of the plugins use 1 or 2 or 3 instances, so you may have hundreds of plugins. And this console is capable to process Rupert Neve EQs and compressors from the 80s or from the 70s simultaneously per each input channel. You can make it sound like a Rupert Neve console along with the Rupert Neve silk setting in the inputs, as we mentioned this already. So it's an incredible processing power. Next, there's a delay. You expected that, but this delay now can be moved in an insert point. It can be pre-EQ, it can be pre-fader, it can be post-fader. You can have it wherever you want. So you can have fold back to stage without delay while mixing delay to the masters, which is not bad. And of course, you do have access to the 72 mix bus sense. You have access to the setting of mixing to the stereo in LCR mode or not, whatever you want over there. You can assign any of the input channels to any of the 24 DCAs or the 12 mute groups, whatever you want to do. And you end up having a signal flow overview right here, giving you all the levels at each section of the input channel. And after seeing this, you may notice that we now can move the plugin chains A and B freely within the signal flow of the channel, which is a very, very cool feature. Plugin chain A may be pre-EQ, plugin chain B may be post-EQ. It's very easy to do that. As well as we now can move the delay and the direct out point to several positions within a channel. This is a very, very convenient and I'd say one of the most flexible signal flows you may build in a digital mixing console. It's very, very much advanced to have something like this. Now let's have a look at the so-called effect racks. At the end of each mix bus, you get the chance to add the signal to an effect. It can be 4 racks consisting of up to 12 effect processors. It's a lot of effect if you want this. And along with this, there we will have the chance to add the wonderful new reverb to our signal, which is a TC Electronics VSS4 HD engine, which is the original TC M6000 engine. Now we have this wonderful reverb within this console. Several instances of this one can be mounted in parallel. So it's a very, very powerful effect processor. It's not only the VSS4 HD from the TC company we can now process in the console. In the next firmware update, we will have an Eventide H3000 harmonizer within the console. So there is tons of plugins and very, very high-class effects already in without using any external effect rack. It's very, very convenient to have processing power like this. Of course, when we are using hundreds of plugins, you may wish to compensate the delay of the channels, of the mix buses and everything. And this is the first console from Yamaha side that can do that. As an engineer, you can decide to compensate input inserts, compensate the run through the buses to the masters, or compensate the output inserts. In case of front of house mixing, you may switch on all of those because you don't care about the total latency of the system. It is different when you mix monitors. Then probably you want the lowest latency possible. So yes, of course, each plugin will add a slight delay. If you use hundreds of plugins, delay gets longer and longer. So as a monitor engineer, you may switch off the bus delay compensation and the output insert compensation because you don't need them for monitor mixing. But what you need is the shortest time possible as a run through before the signal gets into the in-ear monitors of your artist. So very nice to have a feature like this to have delay compensation. Now let's have a look at the output. I will choose an output channel, and as you can see here, it looks very, very similar to what an input channel is, except the specific Neve controls for the inputs. But there is an output EQ now, which consists of 8 bands, which is a cool feature when processing difficult PA systems or make systems sound nice. So there's an 8-channel EQ at the outputs, as well as the plugin chains again, consisting again of 2 times 4 plugins. So a lot of processing power for the outputs. Available already through this and all the flexibility given in the signal flow, which we have seen before on the input channels. So now coming to one of the last chapters of the console, which is the monitor section. Here, of course, you may specify what you're listening to on your headphones or probably on your control room speakers. And there's a different concept now. First of all, we can insert EQs, dynamics within the monitor section, not touching the program signal. We may define what we're going to listen to because there is a section of 8 defined buttons, and what's underneath these buttons can be specified. It can be up to 8 signals coming from the consoles or coming in externally, and you can mix a lot of signals before making this one audible in your control room speakers or on your headphone monitors. And the same concept we can see here, adding plugins and defining sources and ways to move. We copied this concept for the talkback section. Here is a section of 8 talk groups. What you're gonna talk to which mix bus outputs, you can as well specify. There's a section where you can have 8 mixes of buses, which will carry your talkback signal when you press the corresponding button in the talkback section. This means you can talk to probably strings left side, strings right side, you can talk to the drummer, you can talk to Obi-Wan, whatever you set up underneath these buttons. It's very, very convenient, so it's some kind of a small intercom system already built in within the system. It's very convenient to have something like this and not using external solutions. So this was a quick run through the possibilities you may have processing signals within the Yamaha Rivage PM10. I could go on talking for hours about this consoles. I don't want to do this. I want you to contact Yamaha engineers, Yamaha sales personnel, if you are interested in a personal demo. And this is what I really, really want you to do. You got to listen to the console. It's a very, very nice sounding desk with a character which can be as neutral as possible, as well as it can be as analog as possible, which is a unique feature to have something like this in the market. So please visit one of our demos, and I'd be happy to welcome you wherever this is. Thank you.